What if Robert Baratheon lived, but Ned Stark still died? Finale. Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
I read your letters, but I still have trouble understanding what happened. I know that after you woke up from your injuries and found that Cersei and Joffrey had killed Ned Stark, you killed them and took the throne. After that, the people of Yunkai offered you an alliance to join their coalition against Daenerys Targaryen.
Stannis, Renly, Robert, and Daenerys all gather in the Red Keep to discuss matters.
Aye, but I refused. I couldn't fight for something like slavery even if it meant fighting against the Targaryens. So instead I sailed by forces to Meereen and helped Daenerys.
Then together we managed to beat back the slaver armies and free Dragon's Berry. In exchange for that help, I agreed to send my forces here and reinforce the Seven Kingdoms from these White Walkers.
Aye. While you were out there, I've been keeping a close watch on the wall. Wildlings have moved south in greater numbers. I've allowed them through, provided they help man the defenses, but something feels off.
What do you mean, off?
I mean, tales have been spun and respun again and again. At first, they spoke of how the Whites and the White Walkers have harried them day and night, watching them as they sleep. But now, they say that the forest has gone silent, as death, as if all of them have disappeared. However, some rangers have reported shadows moving across one area of the haunted forest. As we speak, Lord Commander Jon Snow is organizing a range to investigate the area.
A shiver runs down his spine as he considers the sheer importance of this investigation. Even if they find nothing in that area, it is very possibly the first encounter between the dead and living.
If there will be an expedition, it cannot be left only to the Night's Watch. Our greatest warriors must be sent to aid them.
Agreed. I will personally accompany this expedition alongside the Red Woman.
Robert knows that Stannis alone won't be enough and issues a call, summoning champions from across the Seven Kingdoms to join this expedition, offering huge rewards to men brave enough to venture beyond the wall. Many answer the call: Oberyn Martell, Beric Dondarrion, Barristan Selmy, Jorah Mormont, and Thoros of Myr, as well as Daenerys Targaryen herself. While Robert initially urges her to remain with her army as they march north, she refuses and insists she wishes to know what kind of foe she is fighting. For the first time in almost 7,000 years, the Night's Watch reassembles its original purpose. Rather than simply being a penal colony of thieves and murderers, they consist of the greatest heroes in the realm. Dragons cut through the sky, filling the expeditions with awe at the sight before them. However, this quickly turns to confusion and uncertainty as the first problem arises. Once they pick up the men from the Night's Watch and free folk in the Shadow Tower, problems arise, as the dragons seem hesitant to move forward. No matter how much Daenerys urges them, they refuse to fly past the wall. Whether this is going above or past it, they stubbornly refuse, even becoming aggressive when she tries to force this.
Dragons aren't meant to pass the wall.
What do you mean?
The wall is not simply a structure, as the legends go. It has spells woven into its construction to maintain balance. Some things weren't meant to go north of it, and others south of it. Seems your dragons are one of those things.
She stares at him, but finds herself unable to coax any of her dragons further. She realizes there might be some truth to this, and reluctantly remains behind, as she does not want to risk them losing control once more. Instead, she promises to help hold the wall as long as possible. The loss of their greatest weapons, the dragons, puts a damper on their expedition, as many seem to take this as a bad sign. Jon tries to raise the morale of their men, but they cannot stop, and soon the haunted forest looms over them, dark and foreboding. Once they would have feared the sounds of armies marching, and the whispers of death, but now they would have prayed for that in favor of the silence. Jon Snow takes the head, Longclaw clutched tightly, with Ghost padding silently at his side. His scouts lead on, pointing them in the direction of the activity they spotted during previous rangings. They crest a ridge that gives them a good view of the landscape below. As they make their positions there, they see the activity below. Nestled in a narrow valley lies a darkened cave, its entrance flanked by towering spires of ice. Surrounding it is the army of dead whites, and at their center, a handful of White Walkers stand like frozen statues.
By the Seven, those creatures are unnatural. What is in that cave? Is that where they hide? Could be where they keep something important. Or someone. If they want something, Then we cannot let them have it.
Jon stares at the army below and frowns. It is not large, about a few thousand with only a handful of White Walkers, but they are still outnumbered, and if they fail, it could destroy the expedition without learning anything. He nods and allows them to attack. Stannis glances at Melisandre, who meets his gaze with a steely nod.
Light your fires, Red Woman. We'll give these monsters a taste of what's coming for them.
The group splits up, taking positions along the high ground. Archers ready their dragonglass-tipped arrows, while Melisandre raises her arms, chanting louder as the air thickens with unseen power. She touches their weapons, which roar to life with fire as they unleash their arrows. The Whites shriek out in surprise as dragonglass and fire arrows send them shambling around. Some notice them and rush their approach. Hundreds of Whites suddenly stream up, unleashing unearthly batteries.
Now!
The archers retreat behind their lines, drawing their weapons as the Whites come rushing at them. Oberyn's spear flashes in the dim light. The dragonglass tip pierces the Whites with deadly precision. Barristan moves with the grace of a man half his age, his sword slicing through the dead like a reaper's scythe. Beric's flaming sword burns bright as he cuts down Whites in sweeping arcs. Beside him, Stannis and Thoros fight with the same fury, turning their sector into an explosion of light. At their head, Jon sweeps Longclaw back and forth, cutting them down with impressive speed. The high ground also provides them with an advantage, as behind them, their warriors form a spear wall, jabbing dragonglass spearheads directly on the Whites, who shamble and fail from their defenses. The White Walkers advance, their pale blades meeting steel and dragonglass with chilling force. Jon faces one head-on, Longclaw ringing against its icy weapon as Ghost tears into the Whites that close in from all sides. Melisandre's flames dance across the battlefield as the pitch and firewood they gathered goes up in smoke, cutting the Whites off. Yet, the heroes of the Seven Kingdoms hold their ground. White Walkers are shattered into shards of ice, their broken remains scattering across the frozen earth. But they still take losses. The first to fall is Ser Jorah, who hacks and slashes at the Whites from atop a rock, but is dragged down and slain. He's followed by Lord Beric, who tries to defend Stannis from a white giant, and drives his sword into his stomach, but not before it smashes his club. Many of their rangers and expeditionary forces join them in the afterlife. From below, the Night King watches the battle unfold, seeing his forces making little progress. However, he appears unbothered by this. Instead, he almost seems curious by this strange band. A low whistling sound begins to escape from his lips. It is nearly impossible for the living to hear it, but the dead respond immediately. They begin to break off their attack, leaving them in control of the high grounds for now. Panting, covered in the foul stench of the dead, the group gathers together.
We've done it. We've beaten them back.
We lost good men, though.
From a distance, hidden among the shadows of the icy cliffs, the Night King watches with cold, calculating eyes. His lips curl into a cruel semblance of a smile as he observes the circumstances. The dead shamble off, their numbers thinned and leaving some gaps in their lines. Jon notices this and frowns, considering what this means and what opportunities it might offer.
They left gaps. If we move now, we might be able to break through.
But charge. We risk running right into their lap or being overwhelmed.
It's a risk, but what choice do we have? We've seen that an individual warrior is worth several of them. If we charge with speed and weight, we can smash through and scatter them before they regroup. Besides, they are smarter than they look. They won't risk another charge uphill or without overwhelming numbers. If they do, I doubt we'll survive.
Better to die fighting than to wait for the dead to come again. Then we must move now, before they have time to close the gaps.
They mount up, their force battered but still strong, shields raised, weapons ready. Jon Snow raises his sword and prepares his forces for a charge, taking a deep breath, but then sweeping it down. Several hundred horses roar as they come galloping straight towards the dead.
Keep going. Don't stop.
The frozen ground trembles under the thunder of hooves. The warriors of the Seven Kingdoms charge as one. The dead crumple beneath their weight. Dragonglass weapons slice through rotting flesh, sending Whites collapsing and sending them flying. Jon urges them to keep moving, ordering them to go faster. For a moment, it works, an advantage seized through sheer momentum. But it is fleeting. The dead have no fear. They do not break. They do not run. After the initial charge, the dead cover and swarm them once more without fear of being run down. They claw at the riders, dragging them off their saddles. One by one, men are pulled from their mounts, swallowed by the relentless tide of Whites. Jon's sword swings in wide arcs while Barristan strikes down an advancing White. Oberyn sweeps his spear back and forth.
Hold the line.
However, as the chaos unfolds, the column slowly gets pressed from both sides. The whites they had initially scattered earlier now come running back. Seeing this, Stannis and Theorist turn their forces, organizing a desperate rearguard action. They strike at the dead with everything they have, as Jon and the others press toward the cave. Theorist cuts through the whites in blazing arcs, but he is overwhelmed. Hands grasp at him, tearing down. The flame of his sword flickers and dies as he vanishes beneath the sea of clawing fingers. Stannis, undeterred, presses on, cutting through the ranks of the dead. But then the cold settles over him. The whites stop, parting like shadows before the approach of their master. The Night King steps forward. The two warriors face each other, the others already fighting their way toward the cave. Jon shouts at him to break off and retreat, but he ignores him. Every second he is here is another the whites do not charge. Instead, Stannis raises his sword, a hardened warrior facing death itself. He strikes first, Lightbringer crashing against the Night King's weapon, only for his steel to shatter like glass. He is not Azor Ahai. He seizes a dragonglass dirk and tries to stab at him, but before he can reach, ice-cold fingers wrap around his throat, pulling him to his knees. The dead do not finish him off, nor do they press forward. Instead, they step away, dragging the false hero behind him. The whites retreat. The battle is over. Melisandre watches all of this from the mouth of the cave, her eyes wide with shock, but then she turns and hurries away, joining the others inside. The others have gathered a catacomb, nursing wounds and breathing heavily as they try to catch their breaths and understand what just happened.
They're leaving. Why?
Because they got what they wanted.
The group moves deeper into the cave, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The flickering torchlight barely pushes back the darkness, casting long shadows against the damp walls. Jon takes the lead, Longclaw gripped tightly in his hands, while Barristan and Oberyn close behind, their weapons glinting dangerously. They press on, the tunnel narrowing as the cold air grows heavier. Then, voices. The warriors freeze, instinctively raising their weapons. The echoes of hushed whispers and strange, musical tones drift toward them from the chamber ahead. The sound is unlike anything they've ever heard. Neither the guttural speech of the White Walkers nor the tongues of men.
It's the dead. How did they get in here?
No. Listen. That's not them.
They enter the chamber and stop dead in their tracks. Small figures stand before them, their large, luminous eyes reflecting the torchlight. Their skin is the color of leaves, their bodies delicate yet powerful. Wreathed in layers of leaves and moss, they are the children of the forest, creatures of legend made flesh. At the center of the chamber, leaning against the roots of a great weirwood tree, sits Bran Stark.
Jon, what in the bloody hell?
Besides Bran stands Hodor, his massive frame partially obscured by the twisting roots of the weirwood. His wide eyes flick between them, his lips parting as if to speak, but no words come. Before anyone can demand an explanation, another figure appears in the torchlight. At first, it seems like the man is leaning against an ancient weirwood, but as they get closer, they see his body is twisted and fused with the roots of the tree itself.
I have been waiting for you.
Who are you?
I am the Three-Eyed Raven, and I have called Bran here to fulfill his purpose.
Bran takes a deep breath and looks at his brother. He then begins to explain everything that's been happening to him. How after he falls, he received visions from a three-eyed raven, urging him to journey beyond the wall. This led him to sneak out one day amidst the chaos of the war to fulfill his destiny.
The White Walkers have surrounded this place. Why are they hunting you?
Because I am the last piece of the old world, the last who remembers, and they seek to erase the past so that only the long night remains.
A very heavy silence fills the chamber.
How long will this take?
I will begin the process now.
Then we hold the cave, at all costs.
The warriors of the Seven Kingdoms nod in agreement, their hands tightening around their weapons. They have come too far to fail now. Far to the south, beyond the battlefield, Stannis Baratheon is dragged through the snow, his face bloodied, his hands bound in chains of ice. The White Walkers move in eerie silence, their movements precise and deliberate. They bring him to the base of the wall. where the frozen behemoth looms over them like a silent god. A stone altar has been prepared, covered in runes that shimmer faintly in the moonlight. The Night King stands before it, his piercing blue gaze fixed upon Stannis with quiet contemplation. Stannis does not struggle. He does not beg. He merely lifts his chin, meeting the Night King's gaze with the same iron resolve he carried into battle.
Do your worst.
The White Walkers do not speak. Instead, the Night King steps forward with a blade of ice, pressing it against Stannis' throat. The cold burns like fire, but Stannis looks towards the wall, knowing that countless eyes are staring at him. He summons his courage and roars.
The wall may fall, but the Night's Watch are still the shields of man. Do not falter. Do not frighten. You men have held the wall for 1,000 generations. Do so once again.
Hissing, the Night King slices his throat. His blood spills on the altar. For a moment, it seems as though nothing will happen. Then, the wall trembles. The air fills with an ear-piercing shriek, a sound like a dying man. The ancient runes that have held for thousands of years shatter. And then, silence. The long night has begun. From beyond, Drogon roars, Daenerys riding on his back as he unleashes a burst of flames directly towards the Night King. Fire burns the altar around him, melting the chains to steam and turning the stone red hot. But the Night King emerges, unhurt. Instead, he walks towards the wall and raises his hands. Suddenly, the dead emerge. The dead beyond number. Leftovers from thousands of years. Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion roar in unison, unleashing flames onto the oncoming horde, trying to destroy their numbers. But while the flowers of fire bloom in their ranks, these are quickly trampled aside as the dead numbers seem endless. She prepares for another attack, but a voice calls to her.
Daenerys, find the others and learn what they found.
The cave trembles as Bran's eyes turn white. The roots of the weirwood pulse with strange energy as the knowledge of countless ages floods into him. As he finishes, the three-eyed raven exhales his final breath, his body turning to dust beneath the ancient tree. Outside the chamber, the first sounds of battle ring out. The children of the forest react instantly, their hands weaving through the air as they summon bursts of flame, hurling them down the tunnels.
They're coming for me.
The tunnels become a chaotic slaughter. The children of the forest move in eerie unison, hurling fire and shadow at the advancing dead. The warriors of the Seven Kingdoms rush at them, their armored bodies crashing through them. Jon herds Bran out, escorted by Oberyn and Barristan, taking the remains of the expedition with them. The child of the forest places a hand against the stone, whispering something in the old tongue. The wall shudders, and a barrier of flame erupts, sealing one passageway and cutting off a wave of whites. Melisandre closes her eyes and also begins summoning fire to her aid, offering a prayer as she remains behind with these creatures.
Ryu, hold them off! Go!
You'll die.
We were never meant to survive this war, but you were.
One by one, the children throw themselves into the fray, detonating firebombs in their hands. They sprint through the final tunnel, the remaining warriors protecting Bran. They burst onto the surface, lungs burning from the cold, and then they see them. Towering shadows loom in the snow. Undead giants. The monstrous creatures glare down at them, their empty blue eyes glowing in the dim light. With guttural roars, they raise their massive clubs. Barristan raises his sword defiantly.
Jon, take your brother and run. We'll hold them off. Let's make the end memorable.
The warriors brace for impact, but before the undead can reach them, the sky erupts in fire. Drogon descends from the heavens, his massive wings sending snow and ash flying. Daenerys rides atop him, her face set with fierce determination. With a roar, the dragon spews flame, engulfing the undead giants. Rhaegal and Viserion join the attack, their fire lighting up the night.
Get on!
One by one, the survivors are lifted onto the dragons, scrambling onto the beasts' scaly backs as the dragons rise into the stormy night, carrying the battered warriors away from the battlefield. Below them, the last of the children fight their final breath, their fire fading into darkness. Dragons soar past the shattered wall. Below, the land is scarred, a frozen wasteland littered with corpses, the remnants of the Night's Watch. The black cloaks of the fallen still flutter in the frigid breeze, a testament to their final stand.
They fought to the last.
The destruction doesn't stop past Castle Black. It runs through the Gift and beyond. A line of destruction, blackened ground, burnt villages, and several body parts. It leads all the way to Winterfell. Ahead, Winterfell rises from the snowstorm. The dead swarm the castle, their blue eyes glowing in the dark, a relentless tide hammering the castle. Within the walls, Robert's forces hold. The battered remnants of the Night's Watch, reinforcements from the Seven Kingdoms, and Daenerys' army form a desperate grinding defense, locking shields and cutting down wights as they scale the walls. At the heart of it, Robert Baratheon stands defiant, his armor covered in ice and blood, his body bruised and battered, but still he fights. With each swing of his warhammer, he smashes through the undead, splintering frozen bones and caving in rotted skulls. Beside him, Renly's sword flashes in the moonlight.
Hold, damn you! This is Winterfell. This is Ned Stark's home. We will not let these creatures take it. For Lord Eddard!
His words spread through the defenders like wildfire. Men on the verge of exhaustion suddenly find new energy and fight back. At their front, Robert wades through them, his eyes burning with fury as he tries to meet the tide. But even this cannot burn through the icy walls of the dead, whose numbers are endless. They pour through the shattered gates, climbing over their fallen. The defenders falter, pushed back step by step. The battle is turning until the sky burns. Drogon descends first, a wave of flame washing over the battlefield, reducing wights to ash in an instant. Rhaegal and Viserion follow, blanketing the undead army in dragonfire, clearing space for the defenders to regroup. For a moment, the White Walkers' attack falters. The attack from above and the walls leave them in disarray, but the Night King watches this, and suddenly the ice all around the air solidifies, turning into spikes that fire at them. The dragons must weave back and forth to avoid them. Though Drogon can do this quite easily, the others have a harder time. Seeing this, Robert wastes no time.
March out!
The gate bursts open and the defenders charge, slamming into the undead like a battering ram. Robert leads the way, his warhammer sweeping aside the dead while Robb and his Northmen keep close behind him, supported by the Unsullied. Bran Stark, seated atop Rhaegal, opens his eyes, and they glow white. Rhaegal jerks mid-flight, his movements no longer his own. He swoops low, spewing fire into the dense mass of wights, perfectly coordinated with the charge.
Bran!
Bran's voice echoes from beyond the physical world.
I see now. This is how we win.
The tide of the battle shifts. The wights, mindless as they are, reel beneath the coordinated assault of man and dragon. Robert's assault now gains a second wind from the support, cutting through the wights as the dragon fire prevents reinforcements from mobbing them. But the Night King has arrived. He steps onto the battlefield, the cold radiating from his form freezing the very ground beneath him. Robert charges first, his warhammer raised high. The Night King meets him with a blade of black ice, parrying the blow with inhuman speed. Robert stumbles, but recovers, swinging again. Daenerys follows, raining fire down on the ground around him. But the Night King is faster than any warrior they've faced before. He deflects his blows with ease, then hurls his javelin towards Drogon, who sweeps out of the way. The ground freezes beneath them, ice creeping up their armor, threatening to bind them in place. He hurls another spear, this one striking Drogon across the wing, causing him to rear back as Daenerys tumbles off. The Night King catches her by the throat, lifting her effortlessly from the ground, smashing his warhammer into the knight's side. The force of the blow shatters the ice beneath them, sending the three sprawling. The Night King rises first. His blade glows with frost. Robert hauls himself to his feet, blood dripping from his forehead.
Come on then.
The Night King swings. Robert parries, barely. The impact sends him stumbling, but he refuses to fall. He swings his warhammer with all his strength, bringing it down onto the Night King's chest. Robert steps forward, his breath fogging the freezing air.
This is for Ned.
And with a final earth-shattering swing, he smashes the Night King to pieces. The battlefield falls silent. The wights stop moving. One by one, they collapse, their blue eyes fading to black. A roar echoes through the sky. Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion screech in victory. The long night is over. With this settled, Daenerys and Robert share a smile. Before they leave the north, both return to the crypts of Winterfell to pay their respects to Eddard Stark. Outside, the survivors of the army all do the same, bowing their heads respectfully for the man who helped make this victory possible, along with Stannis, Ser Jorah, Lord Beric, and all the others who fell in battle. Although Daenerys is offered Dragonstone and a place in court, she refuses, saying that this land is now alien to her, and her place is with her people. However, Robert and Daenerys agree to an alliance, vowing to help each other should new threats arise, until at last they leave as equals. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.